Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of The Balanced Business Dad. This is Dustin Hoog, your host, and as always, I'm here with my much senior co-host, RJ Campbell. RJ, how are we doing today?
We're doing great, except I hate being introduced as the old guy. But
what the hell?
It comes with the territory.
It does. It's so fun. So, guys, we have an amazing episode today. I am super, super honored, humbled, and excited to introduce you guys to Justin Ford. So, Justin, welcome.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let me tell you guys a little bit about Justin, and then we're going to dive into his story because it's absolutely amazing and really touches on all of the pillars that we really talk about here at the Balanced Business Dad, and we want to have the other fathers out in the world just listen to this to see what they can get out of it. So Justin is an author, which I just got the book yesterday. I haven't read it yet, but I'm super excited about that. A speaker, he's a coach, a top producing real estate agent. Most importantly, though, Justin is a husband, a dad, a grandpa, which I'm sure we'll get into, and then, of course, a follower of Jesus residing in Metro Detroit. So, wow, you're a busy man.
Super busy, but having fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I've been blessed that I got to hear Justin speak a couple times in the real estate agent world. He's came in and did some training for teams I've been a part of. We're actually both hang our license at the same real estate brokerage now. And so I really got to know him and hear his story, but I'm sure we're going to uncover a little bit more today. So Justin, let's just kind of start there and then we'll see where this goes. But I want them to hear your story, the story that you share, the story that brings tears to people's eyes, and just the amazing things you've done to get where you are today. So I'll let you take it from there.
Absolutely. And so I appreciate it. So I'm 39, and like you said, I am a grandpa. Our oldest daughter, she'll be 22 here on less than 2 months. I had her at a young age, and she got married last year and had a baby. And so never envisioned myself being this as the profile of grandpa. I always, looked at myself as probably being a lot older and with some gray hair. So we have, we're coming up on 17 years married here in December. We have, almost a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 9-year-old.
Wow.
And all the incredible things that are going on today is not how it started. I actually grew up in a broken home. My parents divorced when I was 2, had a shaky upbringing. My dad was an alcoholic, and, there was issues within his life. And my mom was married and remarried, divorced and remarried multiple times. And so had just a lot of things happen, at a young age, where when you're young, you just don't really understand what's happening. You have no control over what's happening. But what you don't realize when you're young is the impact that it's going to make on you, as you get older. And because of that, as a teenager, I was a good kid for a while, and, I was an honor roll student, wanted to, do something great with my life. But, at 14, 15, 16 years old, a lot of peer pressure started happening, which it does for a lot of people. And I just started making some poor decisions. Between the ages of 17 and 19, I acquired 8 misdemeanors and a felony, all drug and alcohol related.
Wow.
Dropped out of high school, got a girl pregnant, overdosed, almost died, got beat up by the police, and just really, all my charges were drug and alcohol related. I just got, trapped. I was partying, I was getting high, I was drinking, really lost any focus on being successful, any care for the world. And just really went down this path of trying to be this person, that I wasn't. And it almost took me out. I mean, my life had gotten so low, that there was this one time where I was partying, with this group of people. We were driving around all night long, was on a bunch of drugs and cocaine and all sorts of stuff, and had no sleep. And I got into an altercation, and one of the guys told me to get out of the car. It's like 7:30 in the morning in the middle of the suburb of Detroit, and I ended up getting picked up by the police. They took me to jail, and I remember being in that jail so dehydrated, thinking that I felt like I was going to die. I was just needed something to drink, and they had initially, when I first came in, gave me one of those little cups that, if you remember when we were a kid, you could stick the straw through the little tin foil, or you could peel the tin foil back.
Yeah.
And I took that cup, and they wouldn't give me anything else to drink. And I was so dehydrated and felt like I was going to die. I dipped that cup in the toilet in jail and started drinking water out of the toilet. And
Wow.
you would think that part, of life being that low, would have caused me to change, but it didn't. I wanted to change. I just didn't know how. I was in and out of rehab. I was really trying to change. And the final straw was I got into a drunk driving accident. I blew a .21, which is 3 times the legal limit here in Michigan. I was already on a restricted driver's license. I was already on probation in 4 cities. And, got into an accident. Don't even remember. I was on the freeway, crashed my mom's car into the wall, and, and then was taken to jail. And as I was sitting there in jail in downtown Detroit, which was not a place for me to be, I prayed in that jail cell, and I just said, God, if you'll give me a second chance, you let me out of here, I'll change my life. And I remember going before the judge, them looking at my rap sheet. They let me out, no bail, no bond. And I saw that as a sign to change my life. So I jumped on a bus and I went and checked myself into a faith-based, treatment center, homeless shelter called Grace Centers of Hope here in Michigan. And at the age of 19, it was May 9th, 2002. I checked myself into this faith-based treatment center. That's where my life was changed. I became a born-again Christian, and God began to change me and lead me down another path. And here I am today, 20 years later.
Wow. I mean, first of all, that was a busy couple of years between 17 and 19. I mean, there was a lot that was wrapped up in there.
Out of control.
I had heard that moved me another story of a really, I guess, a bad time. But, when you mentioned it briefly, but getting, assaulted by the police or beat up by the police. I had never heard the in jail drinking out of the toilet. So, I mean, there was a lot of low times there.
Yep.
And yet somehow, some way you had the faith to pray that day in that church or in that jail, right?
Yep. Yeah. Cause I mean, I was at that point, I mean, and I had already been, there were so many occurrences, the overdose, just so many different close calls in my life that as I'm sitting in that jail, I realized that it's not going to get much lower than this. And if I don't change, I'm going to die. Like, how many chances is God going to give me? Like, cat has 9 lives, they say. I'm like, humans don't have that many lives. So it's like, if I don't change, like it's not gonna be good. And so, when I prayed that prayer that day, I really meant it genuinely. Like, I wanted to change. And, little did I know that going into this homeless shelter, for nearly 5-6 months, would be the answer.
Wow. So 5 or 6 months you're in this homeless shelter.
Yep.
So Justin, what got you to pray that day?
I've always believed in God. Even at the age of 16, in the neighborhood that I used to live in, there was a church, a few blocks away. And on Wednesday nights, me and my buddies, we always wanted to go play basketball. And they would require us to sit through youth group in order to play basketball.
Good church.
And I remember, really being touched by God. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I didn't know what it meant to have faith or believe. But I remember praying the sinner's prayer, right? In youth group one day. And I was saved, and God touched me. But I didn't know what it meant to live a life for Jesus. I didn't know what it meant to go to church and change and all that. And I did. I bought a Bible, and I remember I locked myself in the house for 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm not going to hang out with my friends, not smoking cigarettes anymore, not having sex with my girlfriend anymore. I'm changing my life. I would take my Bible to school and I would read it. And I really had this genuine, I want to change. Then after 2 weeks of not, being discipled, not having somebody I could connect with, not having a mentor, man, and that's when I got sucked into all of that. And so a week before my drunk driving accident, I got baptized. I went to this church, I got baptized. And I remember, again, wanting to change, just not knowing how. In the morning of my drunk driving accident, it was Cinco de Mayo, which is a Mexican holiday, and I was working at a Mexican restaurant. I went to church that day. Now, at this point, my mom had let me move back in because I was living with my girlfriend, and it was a real bad situation. So she let me move back in. And that morning, because it was a week after I had gotten baptized, And that morning I said, Mom, I want to go to church and then I need to go to work. She gave me the keys to her car and she said, I trust you. Don't let me down. I said, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to church. I just got baptized. I'm living a new life. Well, I went to church and I remember feeling the presence of God at the altar for the very first time. And I'm like, this is better than any drug. It's better than any alcohol. I said, and this was my prayer. I said, God, I wish I could experience this every day. And then I went on to work. Problem was at that work, it was a club. They had the DJ there. They had tents everywhere. It was a party. Music was playing. Everybody was drinking. And I'll tell you what, the temptation to drink that day was so strong that the bartender started feeding me drinks and I started slamming drinks in the bathroom. Within an hour, I was drunk. And after they fired me because they caught me drinking margaritas in the parking lot with customers, and I don't even remember it, I got in my mom's car and I left, and I surely wasn't going home. And so I ended up going to a club in downtown Detroit because that's what I used to do on Sundays. And I got kicked out of the club for underage drinking. And I don't really remember anything after that. The next thing I knew, I was standing next to a state police officer on the side of the freeway, looking at my mom's car smashed into the wall. So when I prayed that prayer, it was just like, what just happened? God, give me a second chance. And if you do, I'm going all in. And he did.
And you did.
Wow.
I did too.
Wow.
What an amazing story. There's quite a bit that I took from there that I want to touch on. But first of all, let's talk about, we talk about the pillar, the first one is we got to have faith, right? We have to have faith. And your faith was, I'm going to say, probably more existent. Like it was there. It was just didn't know how to channel it is what I'm hearing, right? Like you wanted it. You believed there was something better out there. It just wasn't channeled. Would you kind of agree with that?
For me, it was, I always knew. So when I was young, when I was a teenager, even when we were kids, my mom would take us to church once in a while. And I always knew there was something more out there. I mean, I just want to make sure your question is, can you rephrase your question just so I can make sure I understand it?
Yeah, I guess just that your faith was there, right? Even though you were down this wrong path, but there was still faith there because it's what pulled you out of there.
I always believed in God. I didn't know what it meant to be a Christian. I didn't know what it meant to have a relationship, but I always believed in God because even when I was a kid, we go to church once in a great while, but I always believed there was a God. I knew there was, but what I looked at was one day when I'm and it's crazy because I still have the mental picture in my mind. I said, one day when I'm old and I'm gray, I'll serve the Lord then. I'll live my life. And then one day I'll live for God when I'm old and gray. And I envisioned myself sitting next to my old wife on the couch. This is how I saw it in my brain. We're old and we're serving the Lord, just sitting there, old and gray. That's what I thought. That's what I thought, the outlook was. But God was the one I was always praying to. When I was overdosing, when I was coming off of drugs after being up 3 to 4 days straight, when I was at rock bottom, I would just always say, God, please help me, change me. So it was always there.
Interesting. That's fantastic just to hear that. All right, so let's just jump in and kind of dissect that story. So you mentioned a girlfriend a couple times. Is that your wife now? Because you mentioned 22 years. I'm not great at math, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, no. So this was actually my daughter. That's going to be 22 years old. Her mom. So I met her when I was 16. She was 19, and I got her pregnant. We had my daughter at 18, and then because of my lifestyle, I went off the deep end, and then she ended up going off the deep end. And when I got saved and turned my life around, I actually got full custody of her when she was 4. So she lived with me since she was 4 years old. Yep.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. Talk about stepping up to be that father, right? That we talk about, fatherhood's so important there. And then you're married, you have 3 other kids. That's fantastic. A couple things I saw is, we talk about brotherhood as one of the pillars, your friends, you have to have that. And it sounds like there's been a couple times in your life where brotherhood was strong, yet it was strong in the wrong world, or it was strong in the wrong way. You had this close group of friends. They were just leading you down this bad path. And then I'm assuming and tell me if I'm wrong, in the homeless shelter,
Yep.
there was probably some other people helping you out there as well to get you through that.
Yep. And I do talk about this in my book, Unleashed, 7 Key Principles to Breaking Free and Breaking Through. And one of them is mentorship. And, when I went into the Grace Centers of Hope on May 9th, 2002, May 7th, 2002, on May 9th, 2002, God sent a man into the shelter who had served the Lord for many years, but kind of got off track and went down the wrong path. His name's Dwayne, which you'll read about in my book. And God used him to take me under his wing and literally mentor me and disciple me and teach me what it meant to be a Christian. Like, he became my big brother. He was like a spiritual big brother to me, protected me, watched over me, and, taught me Jesus. He introduced me to the Lord. Like, I had said the prayer, this guy would read the Bible with me. He would pray with me. He would encourage me. And then from there, I understood the importance of mentorship, got out of the Grace Centers of Hope. And I talk about this again in my book. And I wouldn't even be where I am today if it wasn't for the men of God that have been in my life and are still in my life today, who are those pillars, who are the ones that I can go to and share everything that I'm going through. And I'm not going to just get hey, you're right, she's wrong, but really correct me if I need to be corrected, but in love, and really encourage me and help me, in those different areas that I need help in.
That's fantastic. So we're gaining the balance. I mean, it sounds like obviously through this work that you've put in, you've started gaining balance in all these pillars. So one thing we didn't touch on, or that story didn't touch on, is what I see you do now, but you're on this health journey. I had this health journey last year. I lost 75 pounds, created, going after a healthy lifestyle to lead by example. Yet you're doing the same thing, I see quite a bit. So let's go into that story a little bit.
Yeah. So, after I got married, I gained at my highest, I gained 80 pounds. So I was about 180 pounds when I met my wife, and I got up to as high as 260. And I've always been more muscular, but I've carried the weight as well. And I realized that how I was, my upbringing was all around food, right? It was always the bag of potato chips on the table with the dip, my always eating all the good food and all this stuff. And it was always about food. And so after getting married, they do say, like, when you get married, you just gain weight, right? I think it's normal for guys to do that. But
right.
I've always tried to be, healthy. I'll go to the gym, but it's never been like consistently forever. I've tried the keto. I've done plant-based. I've done all these things, and I've tried to do all these things. Well, this year, at the beginning of the year, and even a little bit last year, I was having some bloating going on in my stomach, and I didn't understand what was causing it. It was kind of frustrating because I would just get filled with gas and be very gassy and not really know what was going on. And we met this lady who's a friend of a friend, and she said, I think that's SIBO. I'm like, SIBO? What is SIBO? She said, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I think you should get tested. And so back in February, she sent me to this functional doctor to get all of these different tests done. They ran all these blood panels and food sensitivities and all this stuff. And what they found was, they came back and said, you have SIBO, which is bacterial overgrowth in your small intestines, which what was causing the bloating was when you eat certain foods like FODMAPs, it triggers methane and hydrogen gas in your stomach, and it causes you to swell up like you're pregnant.
Wow.
She said, you have a fatty liver, you have a leaky gut, you're on your way to being pre-diabetic, your blood pressure is high, your cholesterol is high, and if you don't change, you're eventually going to die.
So she was a ray of sunshine.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Upbeat.
Yeah. And so for the last 7 months, I've been really, going down this path. I found out all these food sensitivities, some of the foods that I love the most, I can't eat, right? I can't eat gluten. I can't eat eggs. I can't eat nuts. I can't eat, all of these things because of my leaky gut. And basically what she said is this is going to be very difficult, but we can get this done. It's not too late. And so it's been tough. And I've realized how much I've been attached emotionally to food, where I eat to feel good like most people do, and really covering up those emotions by specific things. And I'd say I've 80 to 90%. I've really changed the way that I've eaten over the last 8 months. I've started to run. My wife started a running journey back in December last year, and she's been on this journey where she runs 3 to 5 to 7 miles every day. I mean, she has just become an inspiration. She's lost a ton of weight. She feels great. And, it's encouraged me to really start running again as well, and really trying to, take the steps forward with my health, because, we see the results of, all of these diseases, cancer, heart attacks, and, diabetes, and all of these things. And, the central cause of it all is the food that we put into our bodies. And if we can change the way that we eat, we can learn how to take care of ourselves, we can experience the health that we ultimately want. But I'll be honest, Dustin, my health has been the biggest challenge for me. It's a true battle. It is not easy. I'm inconsistently consistent, right? I fall down, I get back up, I restart again, I try something new, but I'm committed 100%, because I would rather fix it now and work on it now than 20, 30, 40 years down the road, be diagnosed with something and it's too late.
Absolutely. I mean, I went through that same journey, still going through that same journey. I think that might have been the best way I've ever heard it. I'm inconsistently consistent.
Yep.
I feel that. Wow, do
Yeah.
I feel that. So again, but you realized there was a challenge in your life, and you're starting to get that balance back up, right? So we went from the faith story, which was an amazing story, right? How to find God and get you out of this thing. Now you're working on it with your health, which is fantastic. The next pillar, which again, because I know you and friends with you on social media and stuff like that, seems like you have a very strong marriage. Talk to us about your wife.
Yeah. So Joy and I will celebrate 17 years in December. And like most marriages, you're imperfect and have, our ups and downs. And it's funny because our podcast that I have is called Dustin Ford Unleashed, but we have a segment within my podcast called Real, Raw, and Uncut, where Joy and I talk about real, raw, and uncut aspects of our marriage. And we get real with people, right? Because we don't want, we don't want it to just look like the highlight reel people see on social media. We want to talk about real struggles. We want to talk about what we go through. And we do. I mean, we've grown, and it's a process, but we still struggle. And yet we always get back at it, right? We always come back together if there's an argument. You work through those things. We've made a commitment, that quitting is not an option. And, there's a Bible verse, that we all have heard, as believers, the two shall become one, and I think people don't really understand that verse, is because shall become is a process. It doesn't say the two become one. It says the two shall become one, and shall come is a process, I believe, until the day that we die. And so we're constantly growing, because I think, as you get married and you have little kids, that's an adjustment, right? Then when they become teenagers, that's an adjustment. When they start, driving, that's an adjustment, right? We have 3 of our kids driving right now. We've had 2 of them that have graduated. It's like there's constantly adjustments. And then, when you create success and you start making more money, like there's constantly this adjustment that needs to take place. Yeah. So, we're constantly learning and growing and still becoming one.
God, I love it. Shall become one. I'm write that down. That's huge, guys. That is a process over time. And like you said, we've talked about it. RJ and I coming from 2 different spectrums of where we are in life. With his older kids, they've been married a long time. We've been married 7 years with 2 younger kids. But man, you just hit the nail on the head. There's an adjustment in every stage, right? Every day there's an adjustment when the kids get to grade school, to high school. So that was awesome. Yep. So man, and balance, right? We're hitting the balance there. And I see you guys travel a lot. I know your wife goes with you on a lot of your business trips while you're speaking and coaching, which I love to see that. That's awesome. Yep. So next pillar that we talked about is fatherhood, which we know that you have 4 kids. I see that you coach one of your son's football teams, right? So tell us about your kids and the balance that you work through there.
Yeah. So, being, an entrepreneur is not always easy. And if we don't set parameters and we don't put boundaries in, being in real estate, as you know, Dustin, most real estate agents work 7 days a week, 365. And their marriages suck. Their kids don't like them. because it's all about business. And, you know, the one thing that I made a decision very early on is I'll work 6 days a week and I'm not going to work on Sundays. So I've never worked on Sundays. You know, I take Sundays off. We go to church. It's family day. Again, making adjustments. It looks different today than it did when they were little kids, but I still take that day off. I personally sell over 100 homes a year. My very first year in the business, I sold 100 homes. So very early on, I had to create a leverage within my business, or else I wasn't going to have a life. I wasn't going to have a marriage, and I was going to have kids. So, you know, very early on, I learned the model of having somebody show homes for you. So I don't show homes. I have a showing assistant who shows all my homes for me. I don't do paperwork. I have a transaction coordinator who does all my paperwork, and 80% of my business is listings. So, you know, I go on an appointment, I meet with the seller, listing signed, and I have an entire process that happens after that. I'm not the point of contact for my transactions. My transaction coordinator is, which then gives me the ability to be able to have more time to be home, to have more time to go to games, to have more time to be a coach. And so coming into this fall, you know, our youngest son, his name's Judah. He's 9. He absolutely loves football. When I knew I was having him and he was in the womb, I said, God, please let him be a football fan. Let him love football. I want him to play football, be a football boy. And what's awesome is I introduced it to him and he's loved it. So I said, you know what, if he's going to love it, I'm going to get behind him and I'm going to support him all the way. Playing flag football since he was 4. So it's for 5 years. I've been his coach every year. And then he just started tackle football, which is a little bit different because on Sundays we would do flag. So it would be like practicing game at the same time, didn't require much. Well, for tackle, it's 4 practices a week. And they asked me to be his coach, one of his coaches as an assistant. And I made the commitment. It took me a minute, but I made the commitment because I said, you know what? I said, I've established some success in my life. You know, we're financially good. I said, I'll never have this opportunity again, right? After these handful of years, I'll never have this opportunity again. I said, I'm making a commitment to be one of the coaches and I'm going to support him. I'm going to do everything I can that if this is what he wants to pursue, to be there with him, because I never had that. When I was a kid, I didn't have a dad who was behind me 100%, showing up, you know, me looking over my shoulder and seeing my dad's right there and feeling like Superman's next to me so I can make it happen. I didn't have that. So I said, what would my son's life look like if I was there 100% behind him, backing him, and in his corner, right? And so I made that commitment. You know, my daughter, she just turned 16. She got a real estate or her driver's license. And so her life looks a little bit different, but I've really done, you know, as much as I can to go on dates with my daughters, you know, make time for them. But it changes, right? When they're teenagers, the relationship changes. The dynamic of it changes. They're not your little girl anymore where they're everything. They think you're annoying. They think, you know, they just want their space. They want to sit in their bedroom. Like, it's different. So I've had to learn how to adjust to what that looks like. And I'm still learning, right? Now that my daughter, you know, she's 21, you know, we're like super close, right? She gets it now. She's like, oh my gosh, Dad, everything you taught me when I was a teenager, you were right. And now I see her applying those things as a wife and as a mother. And so it's like, it's making time, you know, for those relationships. And even my oldest son, he's 19, he just turned 19. You know, he's just graduated high school. For him, it's simple. Dad, hey, let's go to the golf range. Hey, let's go play video games. Let's go to the movies. But being able to pour into him and teach him like what it takes to be a man now, to be responsible, you know, you're not a boy anymore. It's time to be a man. And so, you know, definitely not a perfect dad, but learning how on a daily basis to meet my kids where they are and support them.
Yeah, I love that.
That's fantastic.
It really is. The balance there was everything. So we talked about the brotherhood a little bit. Now let's talk about, obviously you're doing a lot when it comes to your career, right? So, I mean, you're selling 100 homes a year. You also run a very large team in Detroit, right? Coaching, speaking, you're an author. What does all your businesses look like? How many are you running? What does that all look like right now?
Yeah. So selling real estate still full time. Have a smaller team here in Detroit, but have over 100 people on my EXP team, and that's growing. Real estate coach with Glover U. So I'm a coach or speaker trainer with Glover U. We have an investment company where we buy and flip homes. I have a title company and and also speak. And so definitely, and then the podcast and then wrote the book. And so definitely a lot going on. And some people are like, oh my gosh, how do you do it? How do you do all this stuff? And I think it's very strategic of making sure your schedule is very tight, your time management. Like I schedule everything on my calendar. You know, if you looked at my Google calendar, it looks like a rainbow, right? Because it's just got all these different things on it. Yes. Then I also have the right people, doing specific things in the areas that, they say, do what you do best and delegate the rest. So I've been delegating a lot of stuff. And if I can show up and just operate in my gifts and talents and everything else is done by other people, I think that's how you can get a lot done because it doesn't feel like work. Like when I'm doing the things that I'm doing, it doesn't feel like I'm working. It feels like I'm operating in my purpose. And so to me, it's not work.
Guys, all the business owners and all the business owner dads out there, what you just said right there, I think is so, so critical. Do what you do best and leverage the rest, right? It doesn't seem like work and you're going to be a lot better at what you're good at, right? No matter what, as much as I would try to learn how to be good at paperwork, I'm still going to be horrible at it, right? It's just, that's why I got RJ, right? Details don't matter in my life. They matter in his world. So that is, man, I couldn't agree more with that. So what
I'll speak for us, Dustin, is everybody needs an RJ. Everybody needs an RJ.
100%. Yes, I couldn't agree more with that. But what I'm hearing today is you have someone who, well, let's be honest, we grew up pretty rough. And we've been down lower than I'm going to say a lot of people I know of. We came out of that. We have an amazing relationship with God, right? We're working on our health, inconsistently consistent on a daily basis, which I love. A beautiful marriage, an amazing relationship with our kids that are the fatherhood, and we have an amazing career. We have these brotherhoods and these mentors and everything else that's going on in life. Would you say your life's in balance when it comes to those pillars?
Absolutely. 100% balanced. I mean, because to me, if it wasn't, I wouldn't be able to operate at the level I am. And I think especially for those that are men of faith, God honors balance. God honors things when they're in order. What I found is if ever my marriage, because there's been times where my marriage was out of order, my time with the Lord was out of order, my time with my kids was out of order, my health wasn't, was out of order. And because God is so gracious and he's so faithful and he loves us so much, a lot of times I feel like he pumps the brakes, right? Or he speaks to you and he shows you that something's out of order and he gives us the grace, to step back and put things back in order. And I think one of the big things about that is having the proper men in your life who can see when you're out of order, you're out of balance, and you give them permission, right? That's the thing is you give them permission to hold you accountable. Like, hey, if you see me out of order, you see me out of character, you see me doing something, correct me, right? But also when you're in touch with the Lord and you're praying, God will speak to you, right? He'll show you when things are out of order. But I believe God honors order. So when things are in order and when things are balanced, there's a blessing in that.
Wow. I love that answer.
Yeah. Wow.
That was good. Because honestly, I'll tell you that we were not expecting that answer because we hear so many people that say that, they're working on balance, but they're striving towards balance, but it's not there yet. So I got to tell you, Justin's the true balanced business dad, which is awesome. It's awesome to hear that
I'm working on it. I'm working on it, but I've learned the hard way for many years.
Yeah, the first one that answered that question positively, as opposed to, oh, hell no, I'm not in balance. And at least there's one or two things that you're way out of balance on, which is okay at times. And we've talked about that. You could be focusing like Dustin last year. We talk about, when he was on that really, really strict health journey. Okay, there were things that were out of balance because of that. He was putting a lot of energy into that.
Right.
But Justin has taken his lumps to get where he is. So
that's for sure. That's saying it lightly.
Absolutely. Wow, this is awesome. Guys, I hope you got a ton out of this because I know I did. Every pillar that we talk about, Justin is walks the walk, talks the talk, which I love. It's fantastic. There's a couple things he just said there, but you have to give the certain people in your life permission to call you out. And I think that's huge. That's something here at the Balanced Business Dad that we are trying to incorporate. You guys have heard about the retreat we're doing October 21st down at the campground I own in Lesterville. 30 guys are going to get together. That there's going to be those relationships formed there. So that invite will also be in the show notes as well. Justin, where can people find you?
Yep, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and it's at The Official Justin Ford. And the reason it's The Official Justin Ford, because when I went to go save just Justin Ford, there's obviously tons of us, and I didn't realize that. So it's a very popular name. And so I had to go with The Official Justin Ford. So Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at The Official Justin Ford. I've got the Justin Ford Unleashed podcast, which you can find on every platform. And go get my book, Unleashed, on Amazon.
Yep. Love it. And I'm looking forward to start reading that probably this week. RJ and I are flying out to Orlando Wednesday, so that'll probably be the reading material. So awesome. Looking forward to that. Yeah. RJ, anything to say? Any last words?
I have nothing else. That was fantastic, Justin. Yeah. That was good. That means we went right down the list of the 6 pillars and just checked them off as we went through. Yeah. And it's amazing how much the two of you, we got Justin and Dustin, following through and listening to that. I mean, so many parts of that story are just so similar with two successful entrepreneurs and trying to balance everything that you do. It's been fantastic.
And we're both good looking, so. Awesome. Well, again, guys, RJ will put all this stuff in the show notes for you. RJ, tell them where they can find us and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, as always, guys, share this podcast, refer it to your friends. Just like Justin's, you can find it on all the different places that they access your podcast, but the easiest way to get a hold of Dustin and I is on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/TheBBDad. That's the most simple one. We'll put other ones in the show notes, but if you want to continue this conversation or if you have questions, just reach out to us. But then, so I say, download, rate, review, so we can get more dads and business dads out there that can hear these messages like Justin's today. It's great.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Justin, again, thank you so much.